What's up, Packers fans, and welcome back to another episode of the Daily Draft brought to you by Badger State Brewing. I am your host, Ross Uglem, the publisher of Packer Report. And today we are going to talk about one of my very favorite players in this class, Florida State edge Jared Verse. The first thing, and I'm not a big box score scouting guy. I think that's, you're trying to project what these guys can be in the NFL, not talk about what they have done in college. With that said, brief look at the advanced stats, folks, and my goodness, they're impressive. 134 pressures in the last 3 seasons with 62 pressures last year. Basic box score stats, which I've got right over here to my left, would tell you 9 sacks in 2023, 9 sacks in 2022. But I would say he's even more productive than even just 18 sacks over the last 2 seasons as far as what he's able to do on a disruption level in the passing game. It's a passing league. He's really, really impressive. When like I said, you just kind of look at some basic and advanced statistics without even turning on the tape. 4 forced fumbles as well. He's a good player. He's a very, very good player. Prototype size. That's something that's going to be interesting. You're getting this recording, or I am doing this recording after Green Bay has hired Jeff Hafley as their defensive coordinator, and it's important to note kind of the diversity of scheme for Jeff. He did spend time with Robert Saleh in a 3-4 defense during his time in San Francisco. But it's important to note that like Ohio State ran a 4-3 or a 4 down front very effectively. And most of what Hafley ran at Boston College was a 4 down front as well. So don't be surprised if Green Bay is interested in bigger edges still. Guys that, and you saw some of this toward the end of the year where they did have 4 linemen with their hand in the dirt doing some of that even front stuff. But I'll say, Brian Gutekunst said it best in his press conferences, year-ending press conference. This is a 4-2-5 league, and whether 2 of those 4 have their hand in the dirt or not, it's still a 4-2-5 league. And so whatever Hafley decides to do with his base defense, it's going to be 13 or 14% of the total plays that Green Bay runs. I mean, that's just what this league has become from a passing standpoint, from a spread standpoint. 4-3 or 3-4 doesn't matter a ton. With that said, if they really truly want, those defensive ends, your Reggie White, Bosa brother archetypes, well, probably gonna have to be bigger edges, and that is the prototype size that Jared Verse possesses. I mean, he is, in theory, and I haven't looked at any official measurements from the Senior Bowl, if he even measured at the Senior Bowl, if he's at the Senior Bowl, but has those prototype measurements. Packers want you to be 6'4" or taller, 260 or taller. At least that's how they drafted when Mike Pettin and Joe Barry were the defensive coordinators. Verse, according to Florida State, and according to their sports information department, is that. A couple other things to check as far as the Packers are concerned. He's got to have that 80th percentile broad jump. They really like explosiveness, the ability to get off the ball as it translates to pure athletic testing. And always pay attention to that 3 cone. Elite pass rushers very, very, very often have those big time 3 cone numbers. That sub 7 3 cone for a pass rusher. That's the stuff right there. That's the stuff that the Packers love. That's that stuff that the whole league loves. I think versus scheme versatile though, and that was something that I noted. Like I don't know that I'd want to drop him in coverage a ton, but I do think he can easily move well enough to do it 3 times a game. Preston Smith, cornerback 1, right? Like I think Jared Verse can absolutely play outside linebacker in a 3-4 and can absolutely put his hand in the dirt and get after it as a 4-3 defensive end if that's what you want. And that I think is really more related to like his overall draftability. He's not scheme specific. He's not going to be team specific. I think anybody looking for an edge, whether they have a 4 down front or a three down front as their base, not going to matter. Jared Verse is going to be involved. And again, that really has less to do with the Packers and more to do with where he might just go on draft night. Very, very good hand fighter. Excellent hand usage. Does a great job with the long arm. Does a great job. Swim moves, rip moves. Like he is a technically sound pass rusher. A lot of pass rushers get by on bend, burst, beat you around the end. He's not. He is able to win with his hands. He is a technically sound, gifted, productive pass rusher. And I think, we'll see what happens at the combine, but on tape, the athleticism seems to jive with that. So when you get a really good athlete, that's one thing. That's good. That's exciting. When you get a really good athlete with, who's technically skilled as far as beating offensive tackles, that's big time, and that's what we saw with 62 pressures this year from Jared Verse at Florida State. And by the way, like there are some ACC tackles on, my top, what is now I think a top 270. There's ACC guys on there. There are pros in the Atlantic Coast Conference. It's not the SEC, but they're dudes. There are absolutely dudes. Graham Barton, big time. I mean, Duke University, right there. Um, okay, where were we? Gets off the ball. That was my next point. Gets off the ball. It's and I don't just mean, that 80th percentile broad jump that we're talking about, right? Yes, he is an explosive athlete, looks explosive on film. That's all exciting. I'm talking about the ability to time the snap count and go without jumping off sides. Ball, get off. The ball is snapped and you're going. If the ball is snapped and there's even that slight hesitation and the tackle beats you into his kick step and he gets set, well, now you're having to work counter moves. You're having to do other things to try and get to the quarterback. You got to make the offensive tackle react to you, not the other way around where the offensive tackle is setting you up. Jared Verse is not being set up by any offensive tackles. Jared Verse sets the terms of engagement, gets off the ball really, really well. And I think the bend is good. Hip bend, ankle bend. I think he can get around the corner. And that's a big deal. I think Rashawn Gary has frustrated people kind of blowing past and maybe not the most flexible dude in the world. I don't think Lucas Van Ness is the most flexible dude in the world. Preston Smith has some of that bend. I love bendy pass rushers. Green Bay doesn't like to take them. They like to go through your face pass rushers. But Verse, I think, has the ability to go through your face and around you a little bit. He's got good bend. Very interested to see his 3-cone time, as I frankly am with any edge. But I like the way that he bends the corner when he decides it's time to bend the corner. And speed to power is a plus for sure. When he can get a little bit of a running start, he'll shock an offensive lineman. He will. He will move them back. Speed to power transition. His ability to do that is impressive. Shows up on tape consistently, and is something that I enjoy when I watch Jared Verse play football. Cons: I don't love his counter game. That needs a lot of work. No, I shouldn't say a lot. Anybody who pressures the quarterback as often as Jared does has some counter game, but I don't. When move one doesn't work, or he's trying to beat you around the edge, but now the quarterback's on the other side. So what and how now do I kind of get that hustle sack? How do I beat the tackle, back to the quarterback now that I've passed his level? It's not great. His counter game is not great. He wins plenty on the first try, which is super awesome and probably more important, but his work as a counter rusher could be better. He's very aggressive in the run game. Gets a little bit too upfield. And so you can run kind of draws, stuff like that. And frankly, just like is not super gap discipline, likes to get upfield. And I mean, that will burn you, not necessarily a ton, but that's something that Rashawn Gary struggles with to this day. And this is sounding like an anti-Rashawn Gary. I love Rashawn Gary, but that's real. I mean, you need to, on run downs, kind of play down the line, kind of, you're a lot of times going to be the contained player. So that stuff is noticeable. Sometimes he jumps in gaps. I just would like a little bit more discipline in the run game. And not something I guess I necessarily discussed on the pro side. Like he holds up fine. You can't really block him with a tight end, and he does not get just washed by by offensive tackles in the run game either. He's just a little aggressive. I think teams can take advantage of some of that aggression if he doesn't get that part of his game cleaned up a little bit. The other part is he's a little old. He'll turn 24 during his rookie season. Now, I've mentioned this, like this has to be not what it was as a downgrade. It has to be not what it was as kind of a red flag. This is more of a yellow flag, not even orange, just yellow, because of the COVID rule, right? That extra year of eligibility. And the other thing besides just the COVID year of eligibility that needs to be understood is NIL, man. The way that these kids can get paid is significant. It's not necessarily like first round pick NFL money, though I think at some of the big colleges, especially at the quarterback position, which pass rusher is not quarterback, but these guys are getting paid. Okay. And it's guaranteed money. You can go in the draft. You can think you're going the first round. You go in round 3, you're taking a pay cut. And Jared Verse likes it at Florida State. Thought they had a chance to be something special, and they did. I mean, everybody got into the college football playoff discussion and how they got screwed and this, that, and the other thing. But they had a chance to do something real special at Florida State this year. I think got extremely, extremely close. And I'm going to pretty much guarantee you, without any actual knowledge, Jared Verse got paid. Okay. And I won't probably make this point again when I talk about older prospects, but it does make you wonder, a guy who's going to turn 24 years old during his rookie season, how much projection is there? How much better can he get? If Jared Verse was 21, he'd be a blue chipper for me, flat out, like he would. And I know that sounds silly, but if he was a 21-year-old doing what he did as a 23-year-old, from a maturity standpoint, from a strength standpoint, from a body composition standpoint, and then being able to project how much better he could get, I'd be super, super high. And I am super high on Jared Verse, but that is one kind of yellow flag, is that he will turn 24 during his rookie season. Packers fit perfect. I don't think they're going to get an opportunity to take Jared Verse, just because of what I think of him. But you never know. This edge class is strange. There's no like Chase Young, and I don't mean like what Chase Young is now. I mean, he was just considered the guy, as was Nick Bosa. Nick Bosa is the guy. This class doesn't really have that. I've seen a number of different, like Latu's my top edge, and I've seen that a number of places, I think, but it's not consensus. It isn't. You'll see Jared Verse, you'll see Chop Robinson, you'll see, I think there's like 2 or 3, Alabama, Dallas Turner, Braswell. Like you'll see edge 1 through 6 is kind of crazy. And if the edge that you think is the first or the second best one goes 6th, well, pick 25. The Packers might be able to take the 6th best edge in the draft. And if they have a solid round 1 grade on him, I mean, Green Bay will probably come into the draft with 22, 20, 20, 21 guys with round 1 grades. And I know that sounds dumb because there's 32 teams, but truly they'll have 18 to 22 guys with a round 1. And I think what they're hoping for, what they're praying for, is that one of the guys that they have a round 1 on is available at 25. So if they have 18 guys that they have a round 1 on, they hope that 6 guys that they don't have that grade on get taken by other teams, whether that's at quarterback, where they don't need a quarterback now, or whether they just have different opinions. Like they're hoping that one of their guys gets to 25. And again, if Jared Verse ends up as the 6th edge taken, he could be there for Green Bay. I'm not counting on it. I have, you'll see where I have Verse. It's certainly not where Green Bay is picking. He's an older prospect that should be pro ready faster than a 21-year-old like true junior. And I think while that has some drawbacks as far as upside, it is helpful when you have a team whose winning window appears to be right now. Green Bay, when they traded Rasul Douglas around like Thanksgiving, looked to be, okay, 2025 is maybe the year, and 2025 maybe is the year. But I mean, they should have beat one of the teams in the Super Bowl in the playoffs. They did beat the other team in the Super Bowl. Like they're there. They're where they need to be to compete. So these older rookies are maybe more helpful, especially the ones that are super productive. His size means that the next DC, who we now know is Jeff Hafley, can kind of use him however. Like Verse can put his foot in can put his hand in the dirt if he wants to. Doesn't have to if he doesn't want to. There's no size limitations. He's not Clay Matthews, right? He's not 6'3", 255. Where he is a linebacker and eventually actually got moved like off the ball to linebacker. He's not that. I mean, he is an edge. Okay. He's athletic enough to probably play outside linebacker in a 3-4, but you can put his hand in the dirt. No problem. As far as next year's team, super easy. Edge 4 slides right into JJ Enagbari's spot, Kingsley Enagbari, whatever he likes to be called, or whatever you want to refer to him as. Towards ACL, I believe against the Cowboys. That's late, guys. Even with a 9-month recovery, which is super fast on the ACL front, that's late. So you kind of pay attention to that. There's a spot open at edge 4. If you don't want to hand that spot to Brenton Cox, which is kind of where they're at now, a guy like Jared Verse would be mighty fine. And then when you do kind of say goodbye and thanks for the memories, and I mean that seriously, he's been a heck of a signing and a heck of a Green Bay Packer. I think Jared Verse becomes Preston Smith when it's time for Preston Smith to move on. I think that would be absolutely seamless. As I mentioned, pay attention to the broad jump. They want an 80th percentile broad jump. So in the RAS sheet, you pay attention to relative athletic score, you'd want an 8.00 or better. And then the three cone time is going to be important. Under Pettin and Barry, they've liked edges that are 6'4" and 260. According to Florida State, that is, pay attention to those official measurements. If I'm not correct, like Florida State might actually list him at 6'4", 260. And sometimes, folks, that means he's 6'2" and 3/4 and 251. And just pay attention to that. I do believe, I mean, he's got good length. I don't think he's gonna, be short and light when he gets to wherever he gets to get an actual honest to goodness height and weight weigh in. I think he'll be pretty close to where Florida State says he is. At least that's what he looks like on film to me. My grade, solid round one. Okay. I've only got 7 blue chippers in this class. He was close. And one edge is a blue chipper. And it's not him, but really, really close to that blue chip status. He is 10th overall for me. Jared Verse is the number 10 player in this class, as far as I am concerned. Super disruptive, super productive. And I really, really like watching him play football. And that is one of the highest compliments that I can pay a prospect is I enjoyed this film study. I enjoyed watching Jared Verse work. Something you, Packer fans, might enjoy. The Green Bay Draft Guide, brought to you by Packer Report. There should be a link in this very video description or the podcast description if you are listening to this in audio form. Both, by the way, we appreciate very much. Hey, guys. Promo code DAILY for 10% off. That's DAILY, as in the Daily Draft. How can you help us out? How can you find me? I'm at Ross Uglem on X, formerly known as Twitter. You can find us at Packer Report 66. Become a VIP member over at Packer Report. We love that. Great way to support us. And as always, like and subscribe right here at the Pack a Day podcast. Have a phenomenal day, folks, and go Pack Go.